Hey folks, welcome back. Great to see you back in the garden here, Great Lakes Bonsai. I apologize for the mini drought from January, I think was the last time that I posted a video. That will not happen over the summer, so no summer drought. I've got 5 or 6 videos primed and ready to go, and that's because we did a ton of work this spring, right? COVID-19, by the way, hope everyone's safe out there, has meant a 2.5-month lockdown here in Michigan. So mid-March through the beginning of June, let's see. That's prime repotting season. Let's go. Let's spend time in the garage, right? With no social obligations or commuting to and from work. I spent probably 70 to 80 hours between the garage, most of it, and a little bit out in the garden once it warmed up at the end of April. Repotting 40 trees takes that much time, and ultimately though, it needs to be done, right? We're almost Great Lakes pre-bonsai, as I've joked in the past. This tree, this Dawn Redwood forest here, made up of 5 different trees, is still a pre-bonsai. I need to combine it with 5 or 6 other cuttings that I have growing, and then eventually get it into his final forest pot, and then I need to ramify it even further. So most of our material, as I've mentioned in the past, is pre-bonsai. We're sending it on its way to becoming a future bonsai tree. So I'm not a master that's been tending his garden and trees for 40 years. I'm somebody who's invested a lot over the last 3 years in learning, and now have acquired some material that I'm changing, and I'm hoping to take you along on that journey. So if you stick with me long enough, we will have some badass trees, I can assure you that. One of those trees that I think is at that level we're going to talk about today, and that's the big Dawn Redwood that's sitting over in the corner away from me. But first I do want to take you into our garden, just take you through and have you take a look at some of the little projects that we've got going, and then we'll come back to the Dawn and take a look at what we need to do on that tree this year. European hornbeam I purchased this year. We're going to go rapid fire. A Pinus resinosa collected. You've seen this tree in the past pushing beautiful candles. A little spruce that I've wired movement into and bursting all kinds of buds. A Ficus microcarpa and a Ficus nerifolia that's going to need to go under a trunk chop here this summer. Here's a Thuja occidentalis that I collected this spring. It's looking great so far. I will be bringing you a collection video. This is a beautiful piece of material. And then up and to the right here, we've got my most healthy larch. This one not collected, grown from stock I purchased from Bonsai Show, but pushing all kinds of beautiful spring growth. It's been in that spot for now 2 years. Let's take you into the cage now. This is something I designed to protect from squirrels. Got some amber maple cuttings that are eventually going to be a forest, and then the oak that this cage was designed for, northern red oak. You've seen this one many times in the past. Coastal redwood cuttings, amber maple cuttings, trident maple cuttings, American beech seedlings, and then to the left here we've got some American elm cuttings that have taken, and eventually some Japanese black pines that we may style into something. Who knows if they'll survive, but this cage is a great spot for us to protect our really young material, cuttings and seedlings, to make sure that those squirrels don't end their lives. As we go back into the raised bed, we see the amber maple, we've got a mugo pine that's pushing beautiful candles this spring, another Pinus resinosa that was collected that I've shown you in the past, and a bald cypress that again I mentioned I thought I lost over the winter. In the other areas, we've got Japanese maples, Dawn Redwood, trident maple, my largest one, a Japanese maple that I think will eventually turn into green, and there are some green Japanese maples right on cue. I do have some videos for repots on these that I'll show you. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed that walk through the garden real quick. Sneak preview for the Dawn Redwood here, as I have to duck out of the way. It does survive, and it's looking great this spring. I'm really proud of how this is turning out. Again, a couple of years off yet, but we made some changes to it, pruning, repotting that I'm going to show you right now from back in April. And hopefully you think this made this tree just a little bit more beautiful, although it does most of that on its own, as you know. So the Dawn Redwood is starting to push buds. They're starting to get green, especially closer to the trunk. You're starting to almost be able to see those beautiful needles coming out of the tree, so that means, hey, we need to move on some pruning if we're going to do it this spring. It did really well last year. It's very vigorous, so I think it's a safe time to repot if I do decide to do so. We're going to dig into the roots and take a look first before we make that decision. But for sure today, we've got pruning and wiring to set the future direction of this tree. So speaking of the tree itself, what are we looking at here? We've got, again, a nice stately tree that rises up. But it's got some unique deadwood features that were created by the previous owner. And so we want to use that deadwood, that shari is what it's called, damage on the trunk, to illustrate that this tree is ancient, it's old, it's been through some trauma, right? That's a characteristic we actually want to bring out in the tree. Right now, my eventual front that I'm trying to choose is right about in this region. The trunk pushes us off to the right initially, we head back to the left, And then I'd like the apex to finish over to the right-hand side. There's actually a branch that I think I'm going to wire up and choose to be the eventual apex over here. Alright, so after about 40 minutes, yes 40 minutes, of staring at this Dawn Redwood and applying some wire to the more strategic branches, we've been able to make some decisions around pruning. For the most part, we have all the buds that we need for our design right now. If anything, again, we've got too many branches. I've gone through with a Sharpie and literally have drawn a little black mark on the branches that I need to have come off here. Alright, and the best trees get the best tools, so we'll be using our only carbon steel tool from Kanishin in Japan. It is a concave cutter combined with a knob cutter. It's got a rounded edge instead of a straight edge for the concave, so it kind of is a two-in-one tool. It's heavy duty, it's very sharp, and let's go ahead and get started on some of these cuts. Very nervous moments. Oh, that's going to be a cutting for sure. Alright, so awesome progress on this Dawn Redwood here. We've got some branches sweeping down and to the right and then up at the end, over on the right hand side, and then this is just, we've got quite a few sacrifice branches, but this will be a sacrifice. But this one right in here, coming down and towards the screen a little bit, is probably going to be our key branch on the left hand side. We will see, we may get some back budding later, but at any rate, let's give it a couple of spins. Pretty excited for how this turned out. And then the last thing we're going to do is take a look at the root system and see whether or not we actually need a repot, which will probably add another hour to the work on this tree. So we're going to go ahead and say that the root system is healthy, basically into a cake at this point. We're thinking a repot is in line. Let's go. Just a crazy amount of extra roots through this system. We did have a couple of big dead roots that we'll have to repair over time, but you can see this thing is just a big mess of roots. Very, very, very healthy. So that's good to see. Now we need to take this root ball up a bit. And we will go ahead and do that right now, and then we'll get it into a new pot. Alright, whew, so 2.5 hours on this tree. Definitely more than average, but we are done. We've got it set up with guy wires attached to this Anderson flat. Probably overall took back maybe 30% of the root base and probably 30% or so of the foliage. So I think it was a nice balance for this tree. Alright, so much work on this Dawn Redwood, but absolutely worth it in the end. You see, it's early June and it's looking absolutely beautiful, and a lot of the wiring that we did is coming to fruition in that we're starting to see how it would look with these pads out here. So I like the way that our wiring has taken us down to the left and to your right. And you know, it's responded so well though that I'm going to do a quick round of pruning on it before the summer solstice. Just a couple of back branches that I know won't be part of the final design of the tree, and that's going to be to stimulate back budding into some specific spots that I want to hopefully have some branches. I did something similar on a smaller Dawn Redwood last year around the same time, and it really worked well for back budding. So we know going in that that's going to not be a foolish decision. At this point though, we just let it be beautiful, let it grow. I've guy wired this huge apex down so that the new one can kind of take over. We'll see if that's going to be the final apex. Again, if I get more back budding and more choices, we may change it. I just love the way that it's looking, again, with this trauma to the main apex. At some point in the past, I imagine a thunderstorm or big wind gust tearing it off. We're going for kind of a wind-influenced, alpine-looking tree. Big, stately, sweeping down branches over time. And I like that look for this tree. So if you have any other opinions though, feel free to comment, like, and subscribe, because there's definitely more to come, especially based on all this spring footage. But this is Great Lakes Bonsai, leaning back and enjoying the summer. Over and out.